We are in the middle of the page, almost exactly, page Kuches. The line starts with the word zulas, which is like 7 or 8 lines below the little pei aleph in the margin. We have discussed and paid a lot of attention to the principle that sechel is not contingent, not dependent on there being someone to whom to bestow to share the sechel with. And we recognize that this is speaking on a phenomenal aspect of the sechel, because the essence of the sechel is already present in the neshama. The human being senses what he is. It's not consciously sensing it, but this is what he is, this is what he breathes, this is what his life is. And yet, there's another stage, and this is called sechel, consciousness, moichin. So one would think that since this is a stage of expression of Gilu, there has to be some kind of a cause, some kind of a functional reason to develop this consciousness, such as to impart it to somebody else, to share it with somebody else. And yet, we said that no, sechel is not dependent on there being someone else with whom to share it. One can sit and be maskil haskolos, get involved in conceptualization. Conceptualization is a very special part of the sechel. There is a place where a person is trying to understand something that he is experiencing. What happened? How did it happen? This is a different level of sechel completely. It's understanding something that one has experienced. Conceptualization is drawing a concept from its source before it even surfaces. What entices one to go into conceptualization? He already has it, the essence in himself. Such as, which we discussed, what is the difference between a human being and an animal? Now this is a well-known, so to speak, recognizable aspect to the human being, without thinking about it, without paying attention to it, without conceptualizing. And yet, it is not out of line, and it is, as a matter of fact, something which is done and meaningful to the person, to reflect on the creation of the human being versus the creation of the rest of the world, and to reflect on the principle what the human being stands for in contrast to an animal. And where does he get that information? He gets that information from himself. So what's the point of getting that on the sechel level and the conceptualized level? So for this we explained that this itself attests means it gives testimony to the fact that sechel, moichin, brings down and contains a fundamental truth of the neshama. And it is meaningful for a person to contemplate that which he comprehends in his sechel. It is not like getting involved in some kind of an imaginary thing. It is very real and very meaningful. As a matter of fact, it enhances his own strength, his own life. This is the unique union of the moichin. It's koiches coming from the nefesh, but it's moichin. Moichin, they have neshama quality, neshama koiches.
We said yesterday, we spoke yesterday about the mashpia sechel. The mashpia gets to translate the sechel from a higher to a lower level, so the Tanya can grasp. Does this have to do with what we're saying about concept regulation now, or it's a completely different issue?
It has to. First, he has to have a concept of himself. Then he can transfer it to somebody else.
Okay.
What's your question?
No, because we said sechel doesn't depend to be given to someone else.
That's right. He can sit and conceptualize to himself. And it's meaningful to him.
Yeah, but then we said he gives out.
Then he gives out, that's another step.
And we said, I read someone that it makes him even higher than...
Well, this is what we learned yesterday. That by transmitting the sechel to someone else, there's an increase of oil sechel by the mashpia. This we discussed yesterday, how this occurs.
And I read somewhere that this increase you're talking about is higher than what he would get from his teachers.
That's right, but that's what we learn. That by teaching he gets more than when he gets from his teacher or from his chaverim. But we discussed all of this yesterday. So right now we are focused on the inyan to understand what does it mean that a person sits and his maskil has colors for himself. Let me give you an illustration of the oddity, of the seeming oddity of this whole thing. You're invited to be a guest at a wedding. At the wedding, you're served a luscious meal. You come there as a guest of the host of the wedding, and people. You see the luscious meal, and he says, very nice, thank you very much. Wedding is not a good example because nobody would ever even think of this, but still, I'm just giving an extreme case. You take the meal that was served to you, put it into a package, and you take it home. He says, okay, I'm participating in the wedding by taking the meal to my own kitchen. I'm going to eat it in my own dinette.
So this, what? So this might be a mashal for
one sitting on his own by himself and conceptualizing,
delving into something,
into a sechel that he has. What's the point? So you take the meal and eat on your own by yourself.
And we answered that already by saying.
And we're saying it's not comparable.
No.
Eating the meal in your dinette does not have the reality aspect as you have it as eating in company. Whereas in seichel, sitting and learning by yourself has an element of reality. It makes sense. This points out that the koyach hachochma was the moichin are of such a caliber, and they carry with them along the chayes hanefesh to the extent that it is justified to be on its own.
Right, and here on its own we're saying it's like not for the sake of any later communication, not for the sake of any later action, but just unto itself in isolation.
That's right.
And we said that's because it's based in the nefesh.
Yeah, because it's real, true experience.
Elsewhere it
To
seems
eat
like
the meal by yourself in your dinette is not a true experience. To sit and learn by yourself is a true experience.
right. It does seem like elsewhere we say that the nature of truth, or the hallmark of truth, is for it to go onwards. So from thought to speech to action, that sort of level of through and through. But here we're talking about something that's true and real, but it stays unto itself.
Okay. Now, your question is a valid question, but now we have to delve into the question and understand and take it, open up this box. It seems to be an obvious contradiction. On the one hand, yes, indeed, you could sit and be maskil haskoros unto yourself. On the other hand, you're saying that if this is true, truth disseminates everywhere. And here's what we have to recognize. When we say it disseminates everywhere, it has a very special implication. What is it? When we say, for example, that without there being someone to do a chesed with, there's no point of having chesed. Which means that the phenomenon, the quality of chesed has no presence unless there is someone with whom to share it. When we say that if you conceptualize something, it inevitably will come forth, and you will share it with someone else, it's not because without that your understanding is invalid, is missing something. The opposite is true. Because of the universality of this comprehension, it automatically includes everyone. That's a very fundamental difference. I'm looking for means to demonstrate this principle. Very, very simple. When America was discovered, and people started going across the ocean to this new land, and what did they do here? They established a civilized development. They built cities, they built houses, they built roads, they developed market, commerce, and so forth. Now, this Indian that they developed this civilized, complete development of means of life on this continent. This question will be a little bit out, but please understand, follow me. Did they do that in order to emulate that which is taking place on the other side of the ocean? Or were they creating it from scratch? The answer is they were creating it from scratch, because the concept itself is universal. Is not limited to European location or the American location. One does not extend from there. It's just that the concept itself is universal. It automatically exists everywhere. This is the pshat that Chochmah, that Moichin, goes to the mushpa, because it belongs there to begin with.
Right. So, yeah, it's sort of above. It's above being isolated, and it's above moving around. It's just more essential, let's say.
When we gather children and make hadorim to learn Torah, it is not because we learned Torah 20 years ago ourselves and we want to emulate that, but because they have their own Torah from the Medrash.
Right.
All right, let's go inside. So as I said, we are, let's see, 8 lines below the little pei aleph on the side. The line begins with what's zulas. That gilo ir sechel b'derech ir yosher. Yes, sechel can be enhanced by there being a makabel and by the kashas and the questions and so forth. This is all enhancement of the sechel. Definitely a valuable asset. But the Gilu Yersechel B'derech Yosher, the revealing Yersechel straight out, a smooth path from the Nefesh, is possible without there being someone else. Without necessitation. It's something that one can draw from himself. Now we go further, Bakasha, okay, so Bakasha Tzrichim Lover. Now the Rebbe is pointing out another variation of this perspective. When it is necessary for one to come, which means to recognize some concept, or develop a new comprehension, a new means of comprehending, a new way of presenting something. Then adarabo, then in that situation, adarab, to the contrary, hazulas mevalvel. Then the external presence, the experience of someone else is mevalvel, is confuses, interferes. At that moment, he has to sit and evaluate things unto himself, to draw a new concept and to develop a new means of comprehension. Then he has to sit with himself. Again, this is all pointing out that there is a fundamental reality, truth in Haskalah, in Moichin, that is true unto itself. It's not dependent on any further stages.
So, Can I ask something?
Yeah.
So, we said before that the Talmud brings out that bigger oil of sechel. Now we're saying that if there's a new skula, then the zulas will be mavalvo.
That is when he needs to draw a new concept. To develop a concept, the zulabs can be instrumental, can be assistant to enrich it. But a new concept, this is the other rabbi than the zulas is mavalvo, because then a person has to focus into his own mind, in his own nefesh, his own reality.
So one thing is stronger than Or Yusher, but now if the new concept comes from Or Yusher, that means that Or Yusher is stronger.
I don't understand your question. Do again.
Or Yusher is stronger than Or Yusher, but now we're saying for Skula Chadusha, the Zulas will be mavad, that the Or Yusher is stronger. Because a new concept
in the realm of Haskola Chadosha, there's two different things. Haskola Chadosha means he has to be drawn from his source. That has to be in isolation. To develop it and enrich it, there, as a matter of fact, you said it would be helpful when he's teaching it. It enriches it.
So is the Or naturally contained in the Or Yashar? In other words, when a person fully understands the concept after he meditated upon it, and a natural outcome is that he wants to share it. Is that correct? So that within the Or Yashar can say there's an Or Choser.
Or Choser comes only after the Or Yashar. This sounds of what you were trying to say. I don't know exactly. Oy Chayzer is like the ball reverberating from the wall. But the ball is not only reverberating from the wall unless you threw it. And if you did not throw the ball, it's not going to reverberate.
But the question back is a natural, once a person fully grasps the concept, because it's a godly concept, is there a natural outcome of that is to want to share? Is that correct? Is this universal?
No, so I explained. The sharing is not due to the particular concept itself. It is due to the source of this concept.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Moshe kibel Torah miSinai u'misara liYeshua. So there are two statements over here. Moshe kibel Torah miSinai, and then he gave it over to Yeshua. What did he give to Yeshua? And why did he give it to Yeshua? Did he give to Yeshua because of what he had, or because of where he got it from?
Where he got it from.
Yeah, that's the point. But he had, as great as Moshe is, it's still a human conceptual containment. Kibel Torah miSinai, this is a completely different thing. Moshe was giving what he was getting, not what he had. The same is true. This is why we're saying that the mashpia to a Talmud, there is an enhancement in sechel, because then the mashpia automatically reverts back to where he's gotten his sechel from. And that's why it isn't.
The enhancement seems to be on the level of Gilui, like to elaborate on the original.
It turns out to be elaboration, but this elaboration is sourced, and it brings out the greatness of the concept in its origin. Time is almost up. Might as well develop this a little bit. We said yesterday in the mashal of knowing the labyrinth of the streets and having the sense that this all belongs to one single unit, one city. This phenomenon that this is one city, that all of these streets, no matter how disparate and how far away they are from each other, represents all one source of spirit. Is a phenomenal power, realization. So that when there's a challenge to expand, where is expansion coming from? Not because there is more room, but because the unit, the city, the country, the state, the human reality that was invested in here incorporates, includes indefinite expansion. The American Constitution, everybody knows, it was historically a phenomenally successful document. And one of the principles behind its success is that it includes in its basic document means by which we can. These amendments are constitutional. This is not deviating from anything. It has a much broader perspective than what was conceptualized at the moment. We're not talking about the moment. We're talking about an infinite development, and it provides for that. It's a different spirit completely. This is what enabled it to be so successful and develop the most successful civilization in history.
What's the point here? That this is like a mark of truth, that it has the ability to adjust itself.
No. It's a mark of truth that it carries its source with it.
And the source is indicated by the fact that it's able to have amendments?
No. The source is a statement. You cannot block it out. It's an infinite resource.
Its ability to, its longevity is because of its truth element. And we tied that back to the labyrinth of streets, left and right, versus
labyrinth of streets is nothing. It's the fact that it all is focused on development one city.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So now we have put this to rest. Let them just at least focusing on one word that we have learned today. And that is that in fact, when one has to bring out a new haskalah and a new hasogo, a new means of comprehension, then the zulas will be mevalvel, the zulas will be interfered. Then he has to sit and focus in and develop it on his own. Bring it out on his own. This cannot be done in consultation. This is where he has to delve into the source of his own sechel, and then he can draw from it. And there is more in the same vein, as we shall see, that the real depth of the sechel is something that one has to draw from his own source. On his own. And the reason for that is, why can't it be in consort with the recipient? Because the recipient is already on the periphery, he is on the outside of the sechel. In order to draw from the depth of the sechel, he has to focus in on the reality, the truth of the sechel itself. Where is it born? Where is its core? The fact that it can be explained and developed and brought in a broader perspective, this does not speak of its core. Its core is in his own sechel, in his own nefesh. And when he needs to go back to its core, he has to concentrate on his own.
Not with the chaver, not with his Rebbe, nobody. Solitude.
That's right. Focusing what is the nekuda, what is the point, what is the basis of this whole thing. Okay. This is it for this morning.
Rebbe?
What?
Not even with his Rebbe when he wants to focus in on us to Haskula Chadosh.
That's right. If Haskala Chadosha, he has to find it in his own. Haskala Chadosha means draw it from its source, from the nefesh.